Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in your head today. It is your boy, CIZZY, back at it again with another episode of the Voices of Value podcast, episode 179. Listen, baby, we rolling. Now, you already know we did more episodes than that, but that's just the ones we counting. So imagine the ones we didn't count. But not to be braggadocious, again, we're back with another episode, and like I always tell you, we're back with a fire guest, and all we do is fire guests because fire guests do fire things, and fire things bring fire conversations. And at that point, we just call the fire department. And before I forget, we are at Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club in Overland Park, Kansas, not Missouri, Kansas. And if your son is struggling and they ain't got no hands, they getting beat up at school right now, Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club. If you walk into the store to buy some lentils for your moms and somebody calls you the B word and you don't know how to respond, Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club. If you're feeling like your fitness is out of whack and you want to get some anger management tools in your resource box, Leo Moreno Jr. Boxing Club. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest, a specialist in the game of real estate. She got the game, she got the nice houses, she got the sports and entertainment, she got the swag of the shoes, she got the drip of the nails, and she's actually actively taking Calendly meetings.
Yes,
I'm just saying random shit at this point. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people, my friend.
I am Brittany, and I am a real estate agent. I've actually been in real estate for a couple of years, but I've been in business before that, and one of my favorite things to do is pair business, local business, and real estate together. So
it's a sexy combination.
It's my passion.
Before we get any further, you once had a podcast. Could you shout out your old podcast? Tell us when it's coming back. I'm just playing with you. But also, I want it to come back personally. And what was it about? Let's start there, and then we'll dive into a little bit of your background before we transition into all the business and real estate talk.
Okay, so yes, I did have / do have a podcast called Co-Parenting Without Chaos. And it is about co-parenting. So
without chaos.
That part. So my ex-husband, it's his wife and I that do this podcast. And ultimately we just go through and talk about our experiences, talk about how we do it in such a cordial manner. And I mean, it's always been our number one priority to make sure that the kids are taken care of, that the kids are comfortable, that they don't have to feel like they're choosing between which parent. They didn't ask to be in the situation of two households, right? So we want to make it as comfortable as possible for them. And I think there are so many parents out there that struggle with co-parenting, and our arrangement is super weird for a lot of people. Like, her and I are friends. Like, I don't talk to my ex-husband because I don't have to, because I talk to her because she's my friend. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like, it's natural for us. It works for us. We all went on like this huge family vacation to Disney World together.
I love it.
And yeah, it works.
What key principles or maybe character traits do you think are necessary for somebody to have the maturity to be able to do that? Because in my head, first off, I'm not a parent, so again, I'm speaking from an ignorant standpoint, but in my head, I think something that probably gets in the way is just a lack of maturity and being able to like hold your pride, hold your jealousy, hold your anger for your ex-partner, if there was anger there, which oftentimes there is, at bay, to think about the children and the family first. So I guess maybe whether it's personally or maybe it's something you guys have already talked about on the podcast, what character traits or personality traits do you feel like are really key and integral to being able to have the maturity to be able to do what you guys have done?
Well, I think first it is important for me to say, like, our divorce wasn't some like terrible toxic thing. Okay. Yeah. And our relationship wasn't like that. So people who are coming from a relationship that has those types of things, like, it will be 10 times harder than what we had to deal with, right?
That's fair.
So I do want to always preface it with that because I don't want, it's not like I'm out here trying to portray this like, foo-foo. It's all
Figure it all out, even though
everyone's situation is so different. But, and to be frank, like I did not like his wife, like girlfriend at the time, wasn't a fan. She actually is the one who extended the olive branch, because I guess her mom told her like, hey, you have to get along with this woman. Like you might as well talk to her.
Shout out to the mom.
And she reached out to me on Facebook, sent me this long message, and I was like, okay, fine, we can chat. And we were going to chat at Starbucks. And the Starbucks was like so busy. You couldn't even sit anywhere. And my townhome was right behind the Starbucks. And so I was like, well, we can just go back to my townhome. And she says this on the podcast, but she was always like, I don't know. Like, why would I want to go back to this? I know she hates me. Why do I want to go to her house? And we sat down and really like, for me, it was like, I'm their mom. Don't take that from me. And I think that is a motherly thing to feel, ultimately at the end of the day, like at the end of that conversation, I was like, look, we don't have to be friends. I don't want to be your friend. Not interested, but thanks, and went about our way. But then I came around. I really had to maturity. Like that was a big thing for sure. Being willing to compromise, being willing to be patient. Like you have to do all of those things. And even we don't agree on everything still, right? Yeah. We can be friends, but we don't agree on everything with the kids even, but I will say we try really, really hard to stick with each other. So like if, one of the kids has an issue with a grade or something and they enforce a punishment at their house, sometimes I might not agree with that punishment, but I do carry that over into our house because I want them to know like we are all on the same team. You're not going to play us against each other or whatever. And that happens often when co-parents aren't on the same page.
Yeah, that's really real. I mean, I say it's really real only from perspective of watching movies, but it sounds like it's really real. No, I appreciate you sharing that. I did want to start it off with that because I feel like I'm pretty sure. Didn't you say some of the episodes are still live?
Yeah, they're still all out there.
Okay, perfect. And I want people to go check that out. I just know way too many people who could benefit from some of the conversations you guys have on there. Plus, I feel like you cool personality, so it makes it a little bit easier to listen to as well. So we'll definitely shout that out and put that link in the bio. Let's dial it back to 2005. Young Britt. Like, can I call you Britt or do I? Brittany?
That's fine.
Okay, sorry. But let's dial it back to the young days. Where did you grow up? Whereabouts? And are you from Kansas City? Are you from Alaska? Are you from like Juniper? Like, talk about the upbringing and what that kind of looked like so we can kind of understand the roots of where you're coming from and how that ties into business and real estate.
Okay, so I've grown up in the Kansas City area since like fifth grade. I came
Wait, is that 2005? Because if it is, well, I'm on top of it, y'all. My numbers are good.
2005 in fifth grade? No way. I was a sophomore.
Damn, my bad. All right, continue.
It's okay. All right, maybe I was a sophomore.
No, I graduated in 08. Because I just forgot you're the same age as my brother. So yeah. All right, go ahead, continue.
But okay, so I actually from birth pretty much to fourth grade, I lived in this really small town called Eldon, Missouri, near the Lake of the Ozarks. I'm really glad that I didn't fully grow up there because my life would be very different.
You might own all the real estate in the Lake of the Ozarks at this point. You never know.
Okay, maybe.
But continue. Eldon, Missouri.
Right. Okay, so moved up to Independence when I was in.
By the way, that's what we have in common here is we both spent a lot of time in Independence, Missouri. Love-hate relationship. Continue.
Yeah. I went to William Chrisman for a couple of years, but fourth grade through my sophomore year, I was in Independence. Went to Chrisman, and then I graduated from Oak Park. We moved up north, and I I've always been so thankful for my situation. My mom, she has always been an incredibly hard worker. She's an entrepreneur. Like she's incredible. And I've done my best to be incredible just like her, I guess. Right. So, and she's provided me so many opportunities growing up, that have allowed me to get to places that I don't know if I would have gotten there or if I, or maybe my path would have been different. I don't know. Right. But, grateful for that for sure. I started out, I had my first little job, at like Sport Clips, doing like the cash register and cleaning up hair. That was a good time. But then I went to a company and worked for my mom for about a year, 2 years. I ended up getting pregnant with my daughter. My mom decided to go out on her own and open up her own business. And so whenever my daughter was born, like I didn't go back to work for someone. I went back to work with my mom. Mm-hmm. And one of the things she always told me, like education was like super, super important to my parents growing up. And, she told me like, look, you need to continue on, like get your master's, because she went to school our whole life. Me and my brother,
hustling.
Yeah.
Degree after degree. Right.
Literally. She probably has like 6. It's literally like 5 or 6.
Hey.
Yeah.
Well, from me and your mom, I 100% believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, she was like, you really just need to keep going, finish your master's so you don't have to worry about any of your education while your kids are growing up. And I was able to work with her and go to school and take care of my kids. And like, it was just a really, really fortunate circumstance, honestly. And I worked for her for, 10 years or so.
And what industry is this in at the time? Kind of explain what that business was and what were some skill sets that you learned or acquired or appreciated about your experience there. On top of course, the blessing of your mom being a hustler, creating an opportunity for you to be, in a position where you have enough time to study for school, and school is already stressful in itself. So being able to make money, being able to go to school and being able to take care of your kids is already a challenge, even if it's put in the most easiest situation or the most hardest situation. So shout out to your mom. But I would love to know about the industry that she was working in and that you were working in, and a little bit about the skills or I guess job description for you.
Yeah. So originally she started out doing healthcare management and consulting. Healthcare is her background. That's what she's always been involved in. So we help private physician practices or independent physician practices stay independent from hospital systems, if that's what they wanted to do. Because at the time...
What does that mean?
So at that time, a lot of doctors' offices, like individual doctors' office, were being bought up by these large hospital systems. Okay, so, it was a lot of competition out there and that kind of stuff. And so when these hospital systems were buying up all these practices, like it was hurting other independent practices. And so for those people, for those doctors who were like, I don't want to go work for a hospital system, because they would then dictate their life, Mm-hmm. I really want to stay independent. Help me do that. That's what we did. We helped them try to do that.
And is that through like optimizing processes, helping with sales to bring on more people, like just improving, like I guess a little bit more detail on what exactly that looked like?
So improving systems, helping with their their practice management system. So some people were operating off of paper charts,
Yeah. Yeah.
So like we need to digitize everything. And make sure that you're running the office in the most efficient way possible. Absolutely. So, and some of that also involved cutting costs, changing vendors, those types of things, managing payroll, overstaffing, always a problem,
Yeah, I have a few clients who, physicians in one way or another, whether it's immigration or helping immigrants get their physical health checkups, or whether it's optometrists, whatever. But every one of them have tried to, at one point in their life, like early on, launch a practice. And the biggest mistake each one of them made, that, or at least specifically in this area, like, yeah, I just thought it would be good to have an office secretary and an assistant and probably to have 2 doctors under me. So I hired a lot of people way too fast, which was a terrible decision because I couldn't manage that. Plus I was a first time business owner. And when I ended up having to close the doors 2-3 years later, now I feel terrible because I'm leaving these people without jobs and things like that. So it's interesting that you mentioned that.
Well, and the other thing is a doctor goes to med school to be a doctor, not to run a business. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if, and not saying that they don't have the skill set to do so, they absolutely do. They don't have the time, and so they're trying to take care of patients. Who's doing all the other stuff? Because when you run a business, there's paperwork, like so much paperwork, right? And, people have human resource departments. So when you own a business, you are all those people. You are the marketing department. You are the human resource department. You're everything. You can't do that in medicine. Yeah. Like, you literally are seeing patients all day long.
Mm-hmm. Back to back.
Right. So, so she would come in and take care of that management piece also, help train people, help make sure that that office can run while the doctor sees patients and does the money generating thing that you have to do to survive.
Mm-hmm. Not get bought up and ate up by these large. That's a whole topic. One day I'm going to have somebody that's like an administrator of, like, I don't know, some Truman Hospital or something, to just talk about all the private equity and private, like, buy-ups and huge buy-ups of small office. Very interesting. I read about that one day. So interesting topic. So after 10 years working with her in that industry, what was next? I guess, what did you take from that? And what were you thinking in your head? Like, all right, was it like, all right, I'm tired of this industry, I'm bored of it? Was it, hey, I want to go launch my own practice outside of my mom's practice, or I want to take over her practice? Or like, what was the mindset 10 years in? Because obviously you're in a different industry right now. Yeah. So where did this switch happen?
So, well, in between there, so she did those things for healthcare facilities, and we realized that other businesses can benefit from those same services. So, and then we also threw in like bookkeeping and stuff like that. So, we helped launch new businesses even. I did a lot of business plans. And then we helped to do that back end work, because again, a lot of small business owners, no matter what industry you're in, you get into business to sell a product, to provide a service, not to do secretary work or not to do administrative work. Right? So that goes by the wayside, but that is the stuff that gets these small businesses in trouble every single year, especially when it comes tax time.
Oh yeah.
Because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. Yeah.
Me this year.
It's hard though, and it's hard to balance all those things. So anyway, so we took that aspect and would provide those services to small businesses. And she still does that. And actually, my ex-husband's wife works with my mom.
Amazing. I love this.
So like we're real deep about that whole co-parenting and getting, get along thing. Yeah.
Make it a family. If it's going to be a family, make it one.
Right. All right. So anyway, so they still do that, but ultimately it was one of those things that I was like reaching a point where I was like, okay, so and I never wanted to take away from like I did have some guilt switching over into real estate.
Of course.
Because I was like, I'm here because my mom like provided that way. Right. But I also wanted something that was like mine for myself. And I liked real estate. I always wanted to invest in real estate, do that kind of stuff. And so I was like, why not? And if we're being honest, I waited like 2 years too long because I missed the COVID boom. So yeah, there's that. But it's okay. So I got into real estate at one of the hardest times, I feel like.
And why do you say that?
Interest rates were going up. People were like the whole COVID boom thing, like it was done. It was over.
So let's get real granular here in this part. So when you say COVID boom, what do you mean by that? Where a lot of people buying houses, where things cheap? Like, just break that down for 101 for Dummies book. Imagine this is one of those 101 books, and you're breaking it down for somebody who doesn't know shit about what happened or about real estate, period. So when you say the COVID boom and you missed that, what did you miss?
So interest rates were lower than they've ever been. Right. So there was a study out, and I mean, don't like totally quote me on this, but I mean, I think it was like 90% of people who own a home today have an interest rate less than, I think it's like 5% or less than, like, I don't know. I don't know exactly what that stat is, but the point is interest rates were so low. And when you bought during that period, I'm talking like 2.5%, 3% interest rates. Okay. Yeah. No one sees that. And honestly, I don't know that we'll ever see that again. So the interest rates were really low. People were buying houses. The competition out there, though, was insane. I mean, which means people were going in and offering $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 more than what houses were worth. Mm-hmm. So because of the competition. So it's like you could have been taking W's if you got in there early on, but you also could have took an L because the competition is so high and the value of that property really isn't as valuable as what you're about to pay for it. So you pay $50,000 above asking just so you can be because there's that much competition going back and forth. Mm-hmm. Now that COVID dies down and you realize the real value in that property, I wonder how many people came out of that happy or unhappy, but I'll let you continue to elaborate. I will say there are some people who have that like buyer's remorse, but so that is the buy side of it, right? There were so many people spending crazy amounts of money on houses, but if you were a seller, you made a crap ton of money. Mm-hmm. And then those people rented or whatever, stockpiled all that extra cash that they just made out of those houses. And then about, I don't know, it's probably been 2 years ago by now. I don't even know. COVID felt like that was probably like 5 years ago at this point, right?
It was really confusing.
Started it? I don't even know. I'm confused in timeline.
It started in this time of year in 2020.
Yeah.
So 4 years.
Okay. So, so then after things started to die down a little bit, all those people that had sold their house, stockpiled that cash, then they enter the market. Mm. And they're beating out all of these, I don't want to call them regular buyers, but traditional buyers that are going to go the mortgage route, that are going to, and just throwing down cash, like $100,000 cash or paying $200,000 for the house or, whatever they had to do because they had stockpiled all that cash over this, amount of time. So then it was hard to buy a house for a traditional buyer during that time. I had a client who was a very qualified buyer. Price point was great. It was a competitive price point. It was between $350,000 and $400,000. And we probably saw 40, 50 houses. It was insane. We were looking for 9 months, I think. And I mean, we submitted 10 offers and we finally got the 10th one. And it wasn't because, certain things can come up, if you're, if you aren't necessarily, I don't want to say not qualified, because if you're out there shopping for a house, then obviously you're qualified, pre-approved for a mortgage, but he had a lot of money down. He had, he was willing to, work with sellers to do whatever they needed, right? Like in terms of close date, possession date, like just willing to negotiate whatever. And we lost out to people who had cash that they had saved up.
At the end of the day, the money gonna talk.
Cash talks.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how cycles impact the next cycle, if that makes sense. So something happens, causes this to happen, whether it's, sellers win or sellers lose, or buyers win or buyers lose. But then because of that, 2 years later, it causes this to happen on the flip side. And then every action has a reaction, essentially, the cliche saying. So it's really interesting to see how that works in real estate. Before we move forward, again, back to like the 101 for dummies, break down why interest rates are important when it comes to buying a home and like what that impacts once you own the home. So, for somebody who literally all they know is, I want to buy a house and I've been working to save money, but that's all. They don't know anything else. So why does it matter when you buy and where the interest rates are at that time?
Okay, so there's this saying in real estate, and I will say, like, there are a lot of people who absolutely hate this saying, but you date the rate, you marry the house, okay? So for us during that time when interest rates climbed up to 7-8%, which wasn't that long ago, it was just a minute ago, and now they're starting to kind of trickle down a little bit. But if you could afford the payment, it's okay to jump, I don't want to say jump into, but it's okay to buy a house if you can afford the payment, because interest rates will go up and down. And there's always the option to refinance. So ultimately, the interest rate on your house, like if you jump in at a 7% interest rate and you keep that and you live in that house for 30 years, you paid off that mortgage, you paid a lot of money in interest, right? But most people, well, first of all, most people don't live in a house for the life of their mortgage.
Right.
That's first of all. Second of all, if you do, most of the time you're going to refinance, you're going to do something, because there are certain points where you can get money back for home improvements or, cash up front, even pulling equity out of your home. So there's a lot of different options there. So getting in at 7% doesn't, like I said, if you can afford the payment, that doesn't really matter. And people who, well, I wouldn't say most people know that. Not everyone does know that, but they get scared. But also, can you imagine having a 3% interest rate and selling your house and buying at 7%?
Yeah.
That would hurt.
Chaotic. Right.
Like, I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really want to do it. Even though I tell people like, yeah, but when interest rates fall, you just refinance and you're back on track again.
So essentially what I'm hearing is people might be saying, oh, it's a terrible time to buy because interest rates are high. But the reality is, at the end of the day, if you like the house and you can afford the interest rate, then it's not that big of a deal, because later down the line, there's other options you can take advantage of that kind of, I guess, deduct the negativity of the interest rate being high. Like you said, if the interest rates go down, there's opportunity to refinance or other. Is that what I heard correct?
Yeah, and also this is the other thing about the interest rates, right? So let's say you're going to, the interest rate is 7%, and you're like, nah, I don't want to do that. Home values, historically, if you look at the chart of home values since the beginning of time, they are not going down. Now there have been dips. Obviously, we know there was a housing crisis in 2008. There have definitely...
You would remember that.
There have definitely been things.
I need to chill. I'm sorry, y'all. I didn't mean to disrespect her on TV. I'm fucking with you.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. So there are certain dips in housing prices, right? But people expected the housing market to crash. That's what they expected to happen. It hasn't. I don't think it will. Obviously, I don't have any crystal ball. I don't.
Right, of course. And it's
who knows, right?
It's
we
so
don't know.
difficult to be able to estimate if that's going to happen. Yeah.
Right. But that's not what it looks like. Mm-hmm. And so you can wait on that interest rate, but let's say you are having a 7% interest rate on a $350,000 house, okay? Then you choose to wait it out. Now you're at a 5% interest rate, but that same house is a $400,000 or $425,000.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to eat the cost somewhere. Yeah.
So that's why we say, if you can afford the payment, buy the house you want, because that house is going to continue to go up in value. Absolutely. And that's what we've seen.
When's the wrong time to buy a house? Like genuinely, because basically the first thing I hear from people is like, wrong time to buy is if the interest rates are high. But you kind of just in my head, broke that belief. Like essentially, if I can afford the payment and I like the house, then go ahead and secure the bag because the home value is going to go up. Interest rates might change. I can refinance. So it's like, if you really love the house, like you said, marry the house. So when is genuinely like, hey, this is just no, don't buy right now.
That honestly just has everything to do with personal finances, personal budget. There's a lot of things, like a lot of upfront costs that people that I found that first time home buyers don't know about.
And those are?
Well, so we have the earnest money, which is like a down payment, right?
Hilarious, because in my notes I was going to ask you, what is earnest money? So break that down quickly and then continue.
So it's like a deposit. It's like a good faith deposit, like, hey, I want to buy your house. This earnest money is typically, I would say, like $1,000 is like a typical amount of earnest money on a house that's probably like $350 and less. Okay. Once you start getting up there, sometimes people ask for like 1% of purchase price up front. Okay.
Gotcha.
So that's a deposit that you put down.
1% of $10 million house. We just preparing, visualizing for a future home. But no, continue.
Yeah. So this earnest money, if you back out of the contract without cause, you forfeit this money most of the time. Now, there are also certain circumstances where it can be negotiated, like in those crazy times where that earnest money is non-refundable. It doesn't matter what happens if you back out for any reason, even if it's for cause, you lose it.
Essentially, like when you pay your security deposit in an apartment and you leave at the 8-month mark instead of 12, and they're like, sorry, you ain't getting this back and you're getting charged a fee for the rest of the 4 months.
Yeah.
Got you.
So
Except you don't have the rest of the 4 months. But yes, that was to help Collis process what you're saying. Continue.
So the earnest money is just that deposit on the house. Now that earnest money goes towards your down payment though at close.
That's fire.
So that's important for people to know because they're like, oh, I have to put up that on top of, Well, then after that though, we have the inspection. You have to pay for the inspection out of your pocket. It's generally $400 to $600. There are a million different types of inspections. There's some standard inspections that we do, like a general, a radon, and like a sewer inspection. Those are kind of like the three main inspections people typically do. There is a laundry list of inspections that you could do on a home. And then you have the appraisal. So that typically happens after the inspection to make sure nothing happened during the inspection. The appraisal happens. That's usually about $600 or so, but it differs with price points. Sometimes lenders will allow that to be paid at close and part of that, but I always tell people be prepared to pay for it up front. Like I had to pay for my appraisal up front when I bought my house. And then after that, you have closing costs, which is like 3 to 5% sometimes. $3,000 to $5,000.
What's the point of closing costs? Like, I guess where does that money go? Like
title fees, transfer of property, the deed work, like everything behind the scenes that's happening when the contract process, administrative stuff, those types of things are closing costs that buyers have no clue about.
So buyers are buying the house plus like these 5 add-ons essentially. So do the sellers of a home have a similar experience, or is the sellers just a win-win? Because I feel like you're buying a house, sure, it's exciting, but like also there's kind of like that feeling of like, like gotta pay the appraisal, gotta pay the inspection, gotta pay the earnest money. Is there on the flip side for like somebody who's selling a home? What's their responsibilities? Like, is there any, just for any listeners out there who are looking to sell their house, like, is there a whole bunch of money that they're going to have to pay, or do they just kind of sit back and wait for the offers to come in?
Okay. So before I jump there,
no worries. Continue.
I want to say that earnest money we talked about at the beginning. So if something happens during the inspection, if something comes back that you're not happy with as a buyer, and you can't renegotiate terms to remedy that situation, and then you back out, you get that money back.
Got you.
Generally, unless you decide to do a non-refundable, no matter what type of thing. The appraisal, if it doesn't come back at the appraised value, if it comes back over the appraised value, congratulations, you have automatic equity in your home. If it comes back under appraised value, you have to make up that difference. If you are if you are doing a mortgage, because a mortgage company is not going to lend you more money than it's worth.
I don't get that part. Just go a little bit deeper in that. I don't get what you mean by that. So if it's appraised at under what you're selling it.
So let's say I offer to pay $350,000 for your house. An appraiser comes in and he says this house is worth $325,000. Well, that's $25,000 difference. A lender is only going to lend you the $325,000 because that's what it is worth.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you have to either come up with that additional $25,000 if you really want that house, which people did back in the day,
that
right?
Specific time, right?
Yeah. But or you can renegotiate that and tell the seller like, hey, look, they said there's not even worth this, so you're gonna have to come down and meet me here.
And most people you can negotiate, and most people negotiate their way there. But if they don't, then if you wanted that bag, you got to come up with the bread. Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
Fair. Continue.
But if you cannot work it out there, you would have the opportunity to get that earnest money back, that deposit.
Okay.
But guess what? You lost out on the inspection money and the appraisal money. So it's costly. I mean, that cost $1,000. So you might get that.
So with the person who you went through,
careful.
you sent 10 offers through.
Yep.
Is that a situation they had to pay over and over again?
You only pay the earnest money when you're under contract, when it's been accepted. Your offer's been accepted.
What about the rest of the things, the appraisal, the inspection?
After you're under contract.
Okay, got you. So you submit an offer, then if the offer's accepted, now you're under contract. Now you have to go through all those processes.
Yes.
Okay. I was just clearing that up because I was like, damn, feel bad for whoever that was.
No.
I still feel bad. 10 offers and 9 months.
Right. His heart was hurting, and so was mine for him. Because I don't like that. I hate that. But yeah, so then, you have your down payment, but then on the sell side, typically it has been what happens most of the time, but the sellers take care of commissions to a real estate agent.
Okay. Which is the 2 to 3%?
So commissions are negotiable.
Okay.
There is like a general number that people usually hear, but they are negotiable. And it's also technically negotiable of whether or not the seller pays those commissions. Like I said, it's been like standard practice. Like that's just how.
So imagine they didn't want to pay those commissions, then who would pay it?
So then that would go to the buyer. They could potentially be responsible for paying the commissions on that house. Interesting.
But that doesn't happen often.
It's not something we see.
Okay, good. I was about to be like, damn, these buyers is paying a lot of money. I'm starting to not want to buy a house.
Yeah. So that's kind of where like the scales, I guess, balance out. But I mean, depending though, that sellers, I mean, commissions can sometimes be more than
everything else that the buyer had to pay.
Other stuff. It just depends. But there's also programs and stuff for buyers.
Price of the house.
Yeah.
Got you.
Exactly. It's all dependent upon the price of the house.
So let's dive into, I'm sure there's thousands of other things we could cover for people who are looking to buy or sell houses, but sorry, we ain't got enough time for all that. So what I want to talk about is, I guess, outside of commissions, is there any other areas that the is it called real estate agent or salesperson
or realtor?
Realtor. Okay, so what other areas how else do realtors make money outside of the commission upon selling or helping someone buy? Actually, let's start there. I'm very familiar with hiring a realtor to help you find a house, buy a house, and then the seller pays the commission. I understand that. What about the flip side of you helping somebody sell a house? Is there anything different there? I guess, what are the processes that are different between a seller's agent and a buyer's agent? What's the difference between the two, especially on the financial compensation side of it? If that question made sense.
Seller would still pay the agent commission. On the sell side, it's a lot about coordinating. Like for an agent, like I do a lot of coordinating on the sell side, right? So like buyers, you have to actively get in there, show up houses. You could show up 25, you could show 2, and they might want one, right? So with sellers though, a lot of that is the process of setting up marketing, photography, videography, those types of things to market their home. And then obviously all that runs in the background when you're marketing their home as soon as they go live. But also just being able to pull comps and help them determine the value of their home. That's a big deal. With the different markets that we've experienced, you sometimes have sellers that think their home is worth one thing when we're not really in that market anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And so that part is, I mean, it's a lot. It's all about managing relationships, but that sell side is about really building that trust and confidence in the data that we have to provide to make sure that your house sells for what you want, but also
what makes sense.
Yeah, what makes sense. And if you want your house sold in 5 days, we have to price that accordingly. It has to be priced super competitively. If you're okay, like I'm not in a rush, I really want the most for my house and that's your priority, we might price it a little bit higher if that's what you desire, knowing that it might hang out a little bit longer on the market.
Is it common for people to like start working with the seller's agent 3 to 4 years before they're looking to sell their house, like just so they can like really like, you know, be patient, but oh shit, this is the year where everything's looking good for sellers, people who are trying to sell. Let's go after it right now, but at least they have a relationship ahead of time. Or do people just tap in once, you know, whenever it feels like the right time? Oh, all right, I need to sell my house now. I mean, I guess obviously it's going to range. Some people want to sell their house now. Some people are trying to make a lot of money off of it. Some people don't give a shit. So I don't know if that question makes sense, but do people typically work with the seller's agent like super, super duper early on, like in advance, like a year, 2 years in advance of when they actually plan to sell?
Look, the bottom line is I can meet with you and I can have your house listed on the MLS in 7 days. That's all the time I need. If you were like, oh man, this market is really taking an upswing, or oh man, this drop in interest rates, I need to go ahead and put my house on the market because I know that there's going to be an influx of buyers. We can do that in 7 days. It just depends. I mean, in my personal experience, I've had people say like, you know, I think I want to sell my house like in 6 months. But we don't necessarily, I mean, so much can happen in 6 months in a real estate market. So it's not one of those things that it's like, I mean, we stay in touch, right? Like I know that you want to sell your house in 6 months. So I'm going to keep reaching out to you and giving you information about, hey, you know what? I think now might be a good time if you're ready because A, B, and C.
Yeah, and those A, B, and C's, what are you paying attention to? What software, what news articles, what newsletters are you subscribed to? What YouTube channels are you watching as an agent to like just get information to know what you should be communicating with your clients or potential clients? What are you paying attention to? Who are you listening to? Are you like watching CNBC every day to like see what they say about the real estate market? Like, what does that look like for you in terms of staying up to date about the industry?
I'll be honest, I am not a news watcher because it's so depressing to me.
Absolutely is.
Yeah, so I like don't watch the news. But we have a lot of resources and like I'm on a team. My brokerage is Keller Williams, but I'm on a team and we have so many resources within our team. We have a mortgage broker that really helps us stay connected with the interest rates, with things going on in terms of programs out there that might be available to first-time home buyers or low down payment options or closing cost cover, you know, different things that are available out there to help buyers get into the market who are kind of like teetering, right? So just utilizing the resources, being able to participate in trainings that take place in our industry, whether it's like a local thing with our brokerage or like I am part of Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment. And so we have specific trainings aimed at that level of clientele, that level of interaction, connecting with people who will benefit that clientele, you know? And so just networking, it's so big. That's literally the biggest piece, and that's the biggest way I learn. We also have like a regional association that we're a part of that puts out news constantly about the real estate market, about home prices, about interest rates. Like those are the two, interest rates and home prices are the two biggest things that people talk about when it comes to real estate, I would say.
Okay. And so we talked about this when we went to coffee one time, where you were breaking down like the brokerage, and then teams inside a brokerage, and then a team under that team, and then that team who has a team at other brokerages in other states. Like, to the best of your abilities, from what you remember about that conversation, could you kind of re-break that down? So let's start at the level of the brokerage, and then just take it all the way down to somebody who just gets hired at a what is it called? A brokerage.
A brokerage. So, as an agent in the state of Missouri, like you have to be under a brokerage. Coming out, like after you get your license, you have to hang your license at a brokerage at the bare minimum. So,
is this at all times, just to clear that up, like all for your whole career?
Like you know how like if you, well, I don't know if you know this, but like if you go to barber school, you get your license, the state mails you your license, you hang your license.
Yes.
I don't ever get to see my license. It goes directly to my brokerage. They have it in some like little secret space. I don't get to hang my little license.
Gotcha. Okay.
I was really sad about that, by the way.
That is kind of depressing.
Whatever, it's fine.
It's all right.
It's like I worked hard for that.
Wherever it's at.
Right, wherever it is. I don't know. But no, so we have the brokerage. And then you can choose to be a solo agent, but the support is what is the main factor that differs from being on a team. So you can be on a team. My team in particular, I have an entire administrative staff that helps me with marketing, that helps me with contract work, that helps me with like a concierge service. You know, if my client is selling their house and they're like, yeah, but I need a painter because I really need to get a couple things. We got that. Like, you know, so my team has all the resources that any of my clients would need on the buy or sell side. And for me, that is a bigger advantage than being a solo agent and having to figure out your own systems and you literally do everything yourself. Yeah, you get a higher commission. You put in a lot more work. That sounds like I don't put in work. I put in a lot of work, but I'm saying like, it's very, very, there's so many legal things around like contracts and stuff.
I don't know how
That's
to
terrifying
read that.
to me.
Right, yeah.
Like, you know, and so I'm thankful. Like, obviously I know our contracts. I know how to read them. I know how to explain them, but to have a team of people that are second, third, fourth eyes on those things, that brings me security.
So it sounds like, okay, so you have a brokerage. A brokerage, as soon as you get your real estate license, you have to hang your license up somewhere. So say a friend is like, you should go to Keller Williams, this location, because they have a really good team there and a nice office to work out of, or, you know, run your business out of or whatever. So you're like, okay, I'm going to go there. And then that's where the whole Facebook post, I've announced I'm going to be joining this team over here, right? So now you're on that team. With that team, each team has a different level of resources. So some teams might have a shit ton of resources, like you just mentioned. Other teams might just have 3 out of the 20 resources. It just all depends on your team and who's leading that team and who has, you know, the relationships they have. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. And then if you do decide to be a solo agent, you're pretty much running the show by yourself, but under a brokerage, you get a higher profit or a higher commission, aka more money. Yeah. But on the flip side, there's a lot more work involved, and so it can kind of slow you down. So from what I heard from the conversations when we were discussing at the coffee shop, is the reason that you choose to have this team and all these resources and work with the team and yes, take a less commission, is the amount of volume that you can generate is a lot higher, or likely to be higher, if you have a team that can support you with writing everything up, writing contracts, having things back to you the next day, running all these things, so you can just be out there selling, building relationships, whereas others might be tied up for, 20 hours of their 40 hours that they have to dedicate to their business, doing paperwork, whereas you have 40 hours of the 40 hours you have, I'm just using 40, but to dedicate straight to building relationships, sales, generating more volume. Is that correct? Kind of like the
1,000%.
And then you end up not being so far behind the solo agent in terms of commission because you have so much more volume.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah. You have the ability to generate more business if you're out there in the field doing that instead of in the office doing paperwork.
Absolutely. I love that. I feel like that was important to explain just in short for anybody who's out there looking to become a realtor to kind of think about the route they want to go and the wins and losses or benefits and less beneficial aspects of the two.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is how should new realtors approach their first year in business? Because I think sometimes people forget that, yes, there are all those opportunities to work on a team and be one of the people that help you with, finding painters, and then you get paid, like a job. Mm-hmm. So that's another way to be in real estate for people who are looking for the large commissions, selling the big houses, the grandiose aspects that we see on TV. People forget that the first few years can be pretty challenging from a financial standpoint and from getting business. Can you talk a little bit about how you've worked through that process and continue to, because you're still early in the process as well? We're year 3 now, year 4? 2. Yeah, year 2. Mm-hmm. So talk about, it's like, how have you approached that? How do you suggest others approach it? Should you be like, all right, keep your job until you hit this amount, or talk about that a little bit?
Okay. So
your opinion, of course, there's so many different routes one could go, but your opinion.
For sure. And I'm telling you, TikTok tells,
shout out TikTok.
Shout out to TikTok. But TikTok, I am always seeing these agents on there that are like, I made this many $1 million in my first year, which, first of all, it probably wasn't what their take-home pay was. They probably sold that volume, but take-home pay is very different from
which
volume.
Confuses me, so we're going to talk about that. Keep going. Not yet, but keep going.
Yeah. But, so that's one thing. But also, I mean, everyone's journey is so different, right? And being in real estate, one of the most important things about real estate is building relationships, networking, right? If you go into real estate and you don't have a network, it's going to be very tough for you. If you're not a people person, I wouldn't recommend it. Now, I will say I am very introverted, so it is kind of weird for me. It was starting out and it was harder. But you just, I don't know, you figure it out, but mm-hmm. I actually had money saved up that I had just had in my savings account, and I lived off of that for 6 months before I got my first real estate deal. It took me 6 months to get my first deal, and it was hard, but it's like you stick that, you have to be committed to it. That's one thing in real estate. I was teetering between my mom's company and real estate. Like, you know what, maybe I just need to do both because I really need a paycheck every 2 weeks, but, I really want to do real estate. And ultimately, I wasn't producing in real estate the way I wanted to. And I had to make the decision, I have to 100% commit to this. And I know financially that means something for my savings account, particularly.
Right.
And I lived off of that for 6 months until I got my first deal. And then I had several months in a row where it was just like things were happening. It was awesome. It was great. I had some really good opportunities, some really good connections. And then it went dead for probably 4 months. And again, I was like, oh my gosh, how do people even survive doing this? And I had so many thoughts going through my head, but I just went back to I know this is what I want. I can't imagine doing anything different. So I have to figure it out. And it's called lead generation in real estate, whatever, but probably just in sales in general. And, I had to figure out what worked for me. We have, throughout the history of time, real estate agents have done the whole door knocking thing. We've done the mailers. We do what are called pop buys, which is kind of with
same
door knocking-ish. Right. Yeah. It's the more modern version, I would say. But for me, social media was my thing. I really, really wanted to do social media. Oh, and there's open houses and stuff. And I said that with a terrible face. So I'm sorry for everyone who loves an open house, but it was so hard for me. Like that was one of the things I tried to do at the beginning, and it was okay. But I guarantee you 90% of agents out there would tell you like, open houses aren't as popular as they used to be. And so I would be sitting on a Saturday for 3 hours and no one would show up. And that wasn't a good use of my time.
Right.
You know? And so anyway, so I was like, okay, what works for me? What do I enjoy doing? Because I didn't enjoy door knocking. I knew that wasn't for me. I did not enjoy cold calling. I hated that. Social media was what I enjoyed doing. So I made videos. And the world is on social media, you know? Most of my deals have come from referrals, like people I know, my sphere of influence, my SOI is what we call it. People I know. But some of those people, like I hadn't talked to in a while, but because I was throwing out all those videos and stuff on social media and they knew I was an agent, they would message me or they would call me or text me or whatever. And I sold them houses, you know? So it's like, because, you know, I think everyone probably has people on their Facebook page they haven't talked to since high school or I don't know, 10 years, I don't know, like a long time ago, right? But still, those people will sometimes end up in your inbox. Like, once
they're
you
watching.
have something going on.
They're watching at the end of the day, right? Yeah. And that doesn't have to be a negative. I think if you're a business professional, you know that's a positive thing. It's like the more eyes you have on you, the better. And so then it's just about how am I providing value? How am I providing information? How am I letting them know what I'm doing and the experience that I have and the knowledge that I have so that they feel invested to want to holler at me when that time to buy or sell comes. And especially, I think one thing you pointed out there is like before someone becomes a realtor, I really think it's probably important for them to sit down, look at all like the marketing and lead gen strategies that are out there and identify one that they know when they become a realtor, they're going to go all in on, and better yet, start going all in on it as early as you can, especially if it's the social media. It's like you can start creating fun content around homes like in Mission Hills that you find to be cute. And you don't got to say nothing about being a realtor because you're not a realtor yet. You can just be like, I love this house growing up, creating content about that over time. Then you become a realtor. Now you can start sharing more things about home, but you already built this persona around she likes houses. She likes homes. She knows about homes. She knows about the history of neighborhoods and things of that nature. So I think that's really fun to point out. Because we're short on time, I want to cover one last thing. And this one last thing is, what are some of your favorite resources, whether it's books, podcasts, maybe it's a friend that's in the industry that posts content or sends out emails or takes meetings, coffee meetings, maybe it's even yourself. What resources do you really find to be valuable for realtors in general, but let's just say specific to new realtors? What resources would you suggest they acquire or look towards?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean,
very tough one.
Honestly, I would just say other realtors, other people in the industry that have like the real life experience, because you can find a lot of stuff on the internet and some of it's for the internet. Mm-hmm. Like it's not real life. Right. Yeah. Like it's not real life. And this is one thing like I'm super big on. There are some, like, I do not care to share information. If you want to become a realtor, please, like, I will help you. I'll help you get your license for free. Like, I don't mind sharing the knowledge. I believe there's enough stuff for all of us out here. Honestly, there's enough work for everyone. There are so many people who want to like, no, this is my knowledge. I'm not going to share it because it takes away from my pocket. Nah, I think we can all work in the same space.
There's fucking 100 million houses, right?
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. They're just gonna build some more.
Build some more, right?
Yeah. So I don't ever get caught up in that. So I think finding an agent that is okay, kind of mentoring you. Mm-hmm. I've had people ask to like shadow me. Sure, shadow me. Like I don't care. That's fine, you know. And like I said, like I'll help people get their real estate license. And I do need to drop this little gem here because I wish I would have known about it. But you can actually, let's say you don't want to be a real estate agent full time. You can actually get your real estate license, put it in referral status. If you refer somebody to me, we can negotiate a percentage of my commission that you get. And the only thing you did was say, hey, Brittany,
right,
so-and-so wants to buy a house. That was your role in that. And I can pay you a commission on that. If you, as a non-agent, said, hey, Brittany, so-and-so wants to buy a house, I can't pay you a commission because commission is only allowed to be exchanged between brokers.
Yeah.
So that's like a passive income source, really. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a good network, leverage that. Like you can, there's a lot of opportunity out there.
I love it. I'm glad you shared that because that was one thing I planned on asking you to reshare and totally forgot. So good on you. Yeah. Before we sign out today, let them know where they can find you. I know that recently you posted, hey, you're welcoming coffee dates or coffee connections, should I say? Clearly. Put that right. Taken. But what's it called? Please share where they can find you, how they can connect with you, and how they can learn from you if they're interested in getting into the real estate industry.
So buying and selling _with_Brit is my Instagram. Instagram has the contacts to every other social media channel that I have. I do have a YouTube, Living Like a Local. So again, pairing real estate and local business, super important to me. I love promoting local business. So that's one of those things that I try to do in real estate. A lot of my videos, I try to discover new spots and share those with people too. So definitely follow me on Instagram, YouTube, all of those things. And yeah, if you're interested in buying, selling, if you're interested in becoming an agent, if you just want to have a coffee connection to network, like totally down with that. Maybe you provide a service or something that I can refer to my clients. So yeah, totally. I love networking. I love building relationships. So
I love it.
I'm up for all of it.
I love it. Shout out to Britt for coming on the show. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Shake up. It's your boy, CIZY, finishing yet another fire episode with the queen. Follow her, follow me, follow the podcast, and more importantly, put some lotion on your knees.